What double standard are you tired of? My principal taking days to read and reply to my emails, if ever, versus me being told at 8 in the morning that I should have known something because he sent me an email at 10 in the evening the night before. Reminds me of a power tripping boss. They know they're being unreasonable. They just enjoy the power trip they get by making you feel like you're incompetent. Don't let it bother you too much. It's just an evil little mind game narcissists love to play. Defending yourself. The fact that someone can be punished for defending themselves when no one else would, in my experience worse, is bullshit to me. Example: a former bullied kid that punched back and got screwed. Happened to my boyfriend several times in school. He got jumped, but when he hit back he got in trouble. Insanity. Entry-level jobs that require experience. They think it weeds out the ones with no experience, but it just gives them candidates who are prepared to exaggerate or lie. It's also concerning how often I see stuff like 5 years experience with this thing that came out like a year or two ago on job requirements. Looking for a squid gamer. Need 5 years experience. Must have a veteran presence. Must be first time player. Your boss getting angry if you're a couple minutes late, but then expects you to have no problem regularly staying on 2+ hours after your shift is meant to end. I don't have a problem with staying and doing overtime, but when it starts to be a drama every time I want to leave a bit early with those tens to hundreds of saved up hot hours you can duck right off. If that's how we play, then not is over and done with. Man, when I worked at Steak and Shake, when I was 19 I didn't drive and told them the last bus left at 11:30 PM, and yet I was constantly made to stay and miss my bus. I had to wait all night a few times because couldn't get a ride till like 6 in the morning. Some businesses just don't care. That stuck. My grandfather ran a business where a lot of workers took the bus. Sometimes he would ask them to stay past the time of the last bus. Now mind you, this is 2-3 people, so it was manageable. But if he did, he would drive them all home himself. A few guys who had worked for him 30-40 years ago showed up at his funeral to pay respects, and all of them brought that up. To borrow from Matt Haig, people being okay with mental illness until someone shows symptoms of one. 100% people like to talk about being cool with it, act all understanding, and then get super hostile if someone with untreated mental illness shows up. They don't mind it when they can't see it, but can't handle it when they actually see it in action. If anyone is feeling depressed, please reach out to me so I can encourage you to cut that shit out. My middle school constantly preached that students could come to teachers with any issues bothering them. That went right out the window if you actually tried, though. Oh, you're being bullied to the point of depression and self-loathing. Just ignore it. You'll be fine. You're so stressed from the workload that you're struggling to keep up with classes. Too bad. So sad. Now finish your psych paper. Customers being able to verbally and sometimes physically assault workers while the worker just has to stand there and take it, or they'll be fired. One time at a local grocery store, a clerk straight up told a shouty guy to duck off. Saw the same clerk a week later. Was pretty impressed. I once told an impatient prick to duck off while working at a retail pharmacy for being too entitled to wait in line. The other customers took my side real quick, thankfully. I also got praise from the store manager, but it's a long story. Small town politics helps sometimes for better and for worse. My manager at work not paying for her drinks, but not allowing staff to even get staff discount forfeits. If that's just a manager and not the owner, I bet the owner would like to hear about it. And if it is the owner, that's fine to me. If it's the owner, it comes out of their pockets regardless. Why is dental insurance different from health insurance? On teeth part of my overall health? WTH. I is too. Yes. I can barely see without glasses. I certainly can't drive or do most kinds of work without them. Why does insurance treat it as a separate thing? I do the billing for an eye doctor, and it's even more stupid than you'd think. Just about any eye problem you could have is considered a medical issue, and we bill as a medical specialist just like a dermatologist or ent. But if you can't see without glasses, not a medical issue. You need separate vision insurance for that. Dry eyes. covered under medical. Pink eye, covered under medical. Glaucoma or retinal diseases, covered under medical. Legally blind without glasses, but just fine with glasses. Duck you. That's not a medical problem. You need separate vision insurance for that. Yeah, I've always found it funny that the state says, as printed on the back of my license, that I'm legally unable to drive without eyeglasses. But somehow that's not a medical issue when it comes to insurance. I literally have proof given by the state government that I have this issue. But nope. Separate thing. Politicians who come up with dumb to asinine laws and vigorously enforce them upon all of the regular citizens, but somehow find ways to exempt themselves from being subject to the same obligations to keep and follow them as we are. Some people I know who are strongly against gender norms told me that I shouldn't have a say in my wedding since I'm a man and that my fiancé alone makes the decisions. It was pretty FNG confusing. I have to be exactly on time for an appointment or risk a fine and no appointment. Yet a doctor can make you wait hours sometimes without even a thank you for waiting or sorry about the wait. Politicians being able to openly violate the law and nobody does anything. Politicians who are only held accountable by the other party instead of their own. Rules for thee, but not for me, as it applies to every facet of US politics. From insider trading, to nepotism, to tax dodging, and beyond. I'm so done with the ruling class. Basic laws not applying to people with money or power. I thought the US was based on an idea that nobody was above the law. Punished by a fine is legal for a price. And that's if they even get fined. The Tinder attitude of impress me, and I have standards. Be funny. Don't be boring. Meanwhile person is boring. How it's perfectly okay for a potential employer to ask your salary expectations even before an interview. But a candidate asking what the job pays is somehow a red flag for our and a big no-no. Like, if all the employer cares about is what I will cost them before learning anything else about me, then I should be able to ducking ask too. But no, I'm branded as only caring about money, and you don't, you corporate prick. Edit. Lots of replies from folks who've had an easier go of things. Without sarcasm, I celebrate your successes. My OP was speaking to generalities I've observed in corporate over a couple decades. YMMV. Edit. A couple of folks are saying that this never happens anywhere, and my OP is utterly removed from reality. LOLK. People must be nice to have a perfect life. I'm a teacher and called my wife smoking hot at a football game. My principal reprimanded me for it. I told the principal my wife calls me her smoking hot hubby to her class sometimes. She said it's different because it's perceived different when a girl says it. Star student athletes are nearly untouchable. If they make the school look good, the school will almost never take action against them, as evidenced by the fact that at my college, several of the football stars would literally just park wherever they wanted and never get towed ticketed. I'm not talking about things like parking in the faculty lot or where you don't have a pass. I'm talking things like parking on the sidewalk in front of the student union after driving over a curb and 20 feet of grass to get there. Our star football player at my high school didn't get expelled for having marijuana on campus. He didn't even get a blemish on his record because they didn't want to ruin his future. He went to college on a full ride sports scholarship and then got kicked out for drinking and partying too much and missing practice before he even finished his freshman year. Consumers are expected to curb the use of their plastic waste and carbon by corporations and regulatory bodies alike, while Nestle will destroy a natural habitat to make bottled water in plastic bottles and dump the waste into your grandma's urn if it's affordable. I actually got hired by Nespresso once and didn't make it past the training because of how off-putting it was to hear everyone pretend that Nestle was going around saving the environment. They had videos of George Clooney in the rainforest and old guys in labs playing with dirt, talking about how every cup of Nespresso is helping climate change and all this garbage, and I could never bring myself to tell someone that. At one point I actually confronted the Nespresso rep telling us all of this, much to her horror, and she went into total panic mode talking about how Nestle sends one of their workers once every quarter to make sure there are no more child workers and Even threw in an aside that Nestle and Nespresso are basically two different companies, so popular employees getting away scot-free with things that would get anyone else fired. When my wife started at her company way back in 2009, there was this guy in her group who was the de facto golden child. Charming, charismatic, friendly, a go-getter, etc. Fast forward to 2012 minus the guy had made a ton of friends in all the right places and was essentially a made man within her company. Anytime his name was mentioned, praise and accolades followed, and then he put in his 2 weeks notice to work for a private company in our area. When he left and people began actually analyzing and reviewing his work, they learned the guy was a complete duck up. Mistakes on documentation, egregiously erroneous processes and written SOPs. The works. They have no idea how he was able to keep the shtick up so long without anything of value breaking. People that say, don't worry about what other people think. Be yourself but make judgments about people based on behavior they don't understand. If you don't understand something, ask about it, learn about it, talk about it to gain an understanding. I wish more value was placed on learning understanding people's intentions versus what you see on the surface. And don't say things unless you really mean them. Struggled with social interactions growing up. Half of my life was people telling me not to take things so personally. The other half was being told to conduct myself a certain way so I don't upset people. When companies say they are family friendly but don't want you to work from home or help with child care. Apparently, politicians are allowed to disrespect the citizens of the country they serve, but it's frowned upon to tell a politician to go duck yourself to their face. Respect is respect, no matter if it wears a suit or what language it uses. Exactly. They can screw over millions of people and make actions that lead to people's deaths. But if we insult them out of righteous anger and frustration, we are the bad guys. My sister was allowed to abuse me from the time I was in kindergarten until I moved out of the house. She could basically say or do anything she wanted, but if I called her even a bitch, I was in serious trouble. I finally cut contact with her and told my parents exactly what led up to this. The double standard of allowing the sibling who was 6 years older to abuse the youngest kid who was also bullied at school. They always got angry at the bullies, but never my sister. She would always talk so big, but the moment you even threatened putting a hand on her, she would scream and ball up, and it would be all our fault. God, I hate the ducking piece of shit, and I hope the next time I see her is at her funeral. Parenting double standards. The gender of the parent does not make the parent. Dads are not babysitting their children. They are parenting. This. Also, I've had to fight this in the kindergarten my child goes to because all information, news, calls go only to my wife's phone. Even though for past years I've been the one who has brought and picked up the kid every day. Wife is working long days, but I'm remotely. COVID restrictions applying to regular people, but not celebrities or politicians. My favorite was UK Health Minister carrying on an affair with his assistant whilst going on TV and telling us not to hug our loved ones. Sounds like he wasn't hugging his loved ones either. I'm broke, duck, you get a job. I'm 22 million in debt, but it's okay. The duck. Edit. Suddenly everyone on Reddit is an economist. I once heard this. Owe the bank 10,000. Then you have a problem. Owe the bank 10 million. Then the bank has a problem. If you owe the bank 100, that's your problem. If you owe the bank 100 million, that's the bank's problem. J. Paul Getty. What double standard am I not tired of? Edit. Thanks for the upvotes. Guess I'm not the only one. Celebrities lecturing about climate change when they have the carbon footprint of a small town. Leonardo DiCaprio is particularly despised in Belize because a few years back he visited the Actentunich cave, which entailed him flying in with a private helicopter while his bodyguards denied everyone access to the area. All the locals had to wait to resume work for over an hour while he sloshed around with his guards. DiCaprio actually flew on a private jet to take an environmental award link and failed to notice the contradiction. Me, a non-smoker, being told off for being 5 minutes late to work. while smokers spend 30 minutes at least a day on smoke breaks. I just wander off and have a cup of tea every time the smokers head off on a break. My boss did comment, so I told him I was addicted to caffeine, so had to. He didn't have an answer to that. Old co-worker of mine started going out for apple breaks. When the smokers would go out, he'd go out and eat an apple for the same amount of time the smokers would take to finish up. My dog can shit in the backyard all he wants, but I do it one time and my wife loses her mind. Anything where is the epitome of George Orwell's rules for thee, but not for me. For example, COVID restrictions, but not for politicians. Bosses not following their own rules. Police getting away with bending certain laws, etc. After swim practice, when I was 11, my friends pushed me out of the shower room and held the door closed when a bunch of older ladies were getting together for water aerobics. One of them was my teacher. They laughed and I just stood there naked pushing on a door. Nobody got in trouble. If they pushed a girl naked out of the locker room and held the door, it'd be on the news. Pretty much everything about celebrities. That stupid Cinderella flash mob where they blocked LA traffic was the kind of thing they only got away with because they're celebrities. Edit: apparently the flash mob was only during red lights. So, my mistake. I only saw the one video, and it was enough to piss me off. Partially because I hate driving, and would already be in a bad mood in that situation. Partially because, well, I mean, you saw it.